Hi everybody, it's Sunday, July 24th, 2011. Thanks for stopping by. Now we all know that recently in Norway there was a double attack. There was a really big bombing in Oslo, and there was a shooting spree that went on an island where a Labour Party youth camp was occurring and several children were shot. Now, when this story first broke, I was listening to NPR, and NPR claimed it was an Islamic terrorist organization that had done it. And you know, they speculated about why and who the Muslims who did this could have been. Why the Muslims did it, who were they? But you know, the speculation was immediately about Muslims. Now, NPR wasn't the only one. I also watched the Young Turks. Now, I'm a big fan of the Young Turks, and the Young Turks is a really good show. Unlike NPR, they're not extreme right-wing and racist. But the Young Turks, now when this story first broke, Ben Mankiewicz immediately assumed that it was Muslims as well. Now I don't know if somebody told him that or if that was just his preconceived notion, but he thought it was Muslims that did it, and he thought they had done it because of cartoons. And so he told that to Cenk, and Cenk said, you know, oh, that's terrible. These people are so stupid. They don't really believe their own religion, or if they did, they wouldn't mind people drawing cartoons. Now, I take issue with that a little bit, with that idea by Cenk. I don't agree with him about that. I think it is actually possible to be offended by those types of things without having a crisis of faith, or without being, I don't know, less than convinced of your own beliefs. I think sometimes, you know, in certain circumstances, people feel like they're being attacked, and they feel like that these cartoons are offensive based on their circumstances and based on the particulars of the cartoon and what it's saying. And they might have an overreaction to that. You know, they might react to that in a very stupid way, or a very short-sighted way, but it doesn't mean that the initial feeling is unjustified. Just like, you know, if you were to see Nazi cartoons about Jews before they took power, you know, when they were still trying to gather power in Germany, now would it be so ill-advised to be offended by that? I don't think so. I don't think so, because they were demonizing Jews and they were trying to turn people against them with these cartoons. And that's what they're doing with some of these cartoons about Muslims. They're demonizing them, they're mocking them, and they're trying to stir up hatred and resentment against them. And to be offended by that is not really that stupid. Now, to go out and riot over it is probably stupid, but you know, we can't judge what people in other circumstances are doing as easily as we might think. You have to walk a mile in their moccasins before you can really pass judgment. So, you know, like I said, you know, even the Young Turks, now they assumed that this attack was carried out by Muslims. And a lot of people did. You know, a lot of people thought this was a Islamic terrorism. Now, it turns out that the person who committed these crimes, there was one guy who did both of these acts. And he was an extreme Islamophobe. He was a person who opposes what they term multiculturalism in Europe. And when they say multiculturalism, what they really mean is tolerating Muslims and tolerating people of different races and different religions, but especially Muslims. This man, from what I understand, was a big fan of Pat Condell. Now, The sickening thing about this is that a man who hates Muslims went out and murdered innocent children and men and women, who were Norwegians, just like him. And because this extreme Islamophobe went out and did these things, immediately people blamed Muslims. They just assumed that Muslims had done it. That's what's really so, aside from the fact that children were killed, that's the most sickening thing. But aside from that, the most sickening thing about it is that people immediately blamed the people that he was really trying to get, that he was really angry at. And probably he was angry at other white Norwegians like himself for tolerating them, because it's generally, it's not really the people on the other side that really get the brunt of the abuse. It's the people that you believe are the traitors, So, I just had to comment on that and say, what a shame, what a shameful thing it is. And it's not particularly, like shows like the Young Turks, okay? The guys on the Young Turks, I'm not saying that they're not Islamophobes. They defend Muslims, but our culture, it so pervades our culture. Islamophobia so pervades our culture that even people like the Young Turks will fall into the trap of immediately blaming the victims for these acts, because that's just, it's just so ingrained in our heads that it's what we immediately think. And NPR will just say, oh, it was Muslims. And how many people are going to find out that really he wasn't a Muslim, he was a Muslim hater? And how many people are going to say that this was Christian terrorism? Nobody. Nobody's going to say that. Okay, if he was a Muslim, they would have said, oh, there go the Muslims again. They're at it again. The Muslims did it. It's Islamic terrorism. And so immediately that crime would be pinned on 1.5 billion people. It would be pinned on the religion itself, and people would pretend that it was a religious service that was being played out, and that what he did was part of that religion. And so therefore the religion itself is a crime. Okay, now when they find out it was a Christian who hates Muslims, they're not going to say that. They're not going to say that this is Christian terrorism. They're not going to say it was a Christian act. They're going to say it was a lone nut. Even though, okay, he has many connections in the Islamophobic community, even though he listens to very well-known, very well-publicized people like Pat Condell, who encouraged him to do this. And none of those people will be blamed. Pat Condell won't be blamed. Christianity won't be blamed. The people who wrote the manifestos talking about how Europe was declining because of Muslims, none of those people will be blamed. And even he won't get the kind of blame that he deserves. As a extreme ideologue, he'll just be branded a nut, which is really letting him off easy, if you ask me. So, it's, and the last thing I want to say about this is that, as I've said before, people who push hate are partially responsible when people go out and act on that hate. So I think you should think about that. Pat Condell, he is partially responsible because he was there to fan the hatred and fan the flames and push this guy in that direction, and eventually a bunch of children were shot. And it's not like if Pat Condell didn't exist, those children would be alive. But let me tell you something. If there was nobody out there doing what Pat Condell is doing, yes, those children would be alive right now. Thanks for watching.